strain. Was it a bicycle? What is wrong with my brain? Is it the end of me? No, I must still believe. So I'm still alive, you see. Heck yeah, now I'm on my way. But let's stay focused, there's still a job in hand that we must do. Cameras start to click, we know we're creating something new. So go Marty and Sarah and Mark and Matt, Owen, Smitty, McCrilly and Jamie and Lane in the Orchard County Band. The Orchard County Band. The Orchard County Band. The Orchard County Band. Stop the clock, we're done, we're rolling. Sound the horn and sing that we are going. 27 hours, that is the time. So let's hop on the bus and let it shine, 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 shine. Say sha la 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 la, 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 sha la 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 la. Good afternoon, folks. Or is it early evening? 4:45. What do we call that, folks? Is it late afternoon? Does it even matter? You are very welcome to Bandido Talks. And you know, folks, the Bandido was out there for a bit of a walk. I don't know if you can see on camera. Maybe I don't have a sufficiently high definition camera for you to see. But I am soaked. My red bandana is soaked. I am soaked because I'm just in from a very, very enjoyable but wet walk. It was one of those, folks, where, you get out there and 10 minutes in you're thinking, yeah, it's starting to rain a little, but it's doable. We can work with this. Then 20 minutes in, you're looking and thinking, yeah, this is pretty insistent, this rain. And I'm pretty saturated now. But oh well, such is life, folks. The rain is not going to kill me. Unlike the story that we're going to talk about today. Fucking hell. Folks, I saw this earlier in the week. And I thought I have to do a show on this. Because it's one of those stories that, a lot of people would just see it. They'd see it in passing and say, well, it's not earth-shattering news, that. That's what a lot of people would think. They just look at the story and sort of disregard it, and not perhaps dig a little deeper and try to figure out, is there a lesson in the story? What am I talking about? Well, look. The Bandido was reading a bit of South American news. Because I am a little Mexican, remember that? Or am I a Colombian? I haven't made my mind up yet. But I was reading some of the news articles from South America on the BBC website. I was just having a little browse. I'll often do this at some stage in the week just to see if the Bandido gets any inspiration for his live shows or for some other piece of content. So I'm going through the Latin American news, and I come across this story where 13 people were killed in a plane crash in Peru. Now, look, don't get me wrong. When we're talking about commercial airlines, the big Western commercial airlines, Ryanair, EasyJet, what else do we have here? Aer Lingus, Jet2, any of these are UK airlines, we could say, UK Irish Airlines. I'm sure over in America you have all of your airlines over there, and the Middle East, they have their airlines perhaps. But look, when we're talking about just Western airlines, let me just even focus here on the UK. Flying is pretty safe on those big Western commercial airlines. But then when we shift our focus of attention to fucking South America and some fucking hunk of shit that's carrying 13 people over southern Peru, all so they can do what? Of course, these people who were killed. Now look, I don't want to lay into these people. I'm sure the families are going through a very distressing period. But the Bandido has to be upfront about what he thinks here. All of these people, pretty much, that were killed in this plane crash in Peru, they were all tourists. So they take this hunk of shit plane in Peru because they're tourists. And when you're a tourist, you have to go and do touristy things, like fly in hunks of shit from Peru over southern Peru so they could take some pictures out of the plane of these fucking paintings or these drawings in the ground. Who does this? Clearly people do this. So we have these bunch of tourists get on to some rickety-ass looking plane. That plane was supposed to fly them over some part of southern Peru that has these fucking drawings in the sand that have been preserved from thousands of years ago. And these tourists wanted to get in this plane and, get the cameras. Use the internet! What's wrong with the internet? Why do you need your own picture? Why do you need to go to Peru as a tourist to get into some garbage plane to fly over some sand that has some shapes made in it so that you can take a picture of these shapes and these squiggly lines and straight lines on your own camera? Please help me understand. Well, you see, that's what we're going to do today, folks. Because, you see a story like this, and the first thing I think, who the fuck, number one, who the fuck goes to Peru as a tourist? I mean, ayahuasca, or I want to go and sample the local culture. All right, if you want to do that, good on you. Just be aware that if you're getting into some fucking plane in Peru, your pilot may well have been on the magic mushrooms the night before. And he mightn't just have his complete wits about him. He mightn't be as coordinated as he should be. He mightn't be as focused as he should be. But I'm just thinking, I'm going to Peru as a tourist. Why? Why would I go to Peru as a tourist? Look, if I have some good reason to go to Peru, I'll go. If there's some exceptional opportunity there, okay, I'll weigh up the opportunity, I'll weigh up the cost and the benefit, and if the benefit outweighs the cost, okay, I'll go to Peru. But I ain't going to Peru as a fucking tourist to do what? What am I looking to do there? Sample the local culture? Yeah, I can just read a book. Or I can watch a video online. That'll do me lovely jubbly. Thank you very much. So that's the first thing. I'm just thinking, going as a tourist. This idea, folks, this has never made sense to me. But look, I'm only one man. But to me, this idea of going to somewhere as a tourist, to just walk around and do tourist things. You know, folks, I'm only going to go somewhere if there's a good reason for me to go. If there's something in it for me. And if I'm going to go to some, let's be generous here, you know, it kind of looks like the third world to me, Peru. You know, are we going to call that the first world? You know, it's like the third world. Underdeveloped Latin America. Okay, well, if you're going to get me to go out into the bush in Latin America, I want to have a good reason for going. That's the first thing. I ain't going as no fucking tourist. I'll come back to Ireland with no feet. Some cartel will snap me up and say, Mr. Bandido, I've seen you on the tube, and I'm going to cut your feet off and send you back packing to Ireland. No, I don't want that at all. So I don't know. This idea of going to places as a tourist, I don't understand it. I don't want to be a tourist. Being a tourist means going around with your camera, wearing, you know, fucking tourist clothes. Oh, look at that chapel. Look at that piece of architecture. Oh, look at the local tribes sniffing the magic mushrooms. Why? Again, maybe I'm just a bizarre human, but I need a reason to go somewhere. And going somewhere as a dipshit, airy-furry tourist is not a reason. That just seems like I'm fucking literally it's like I'm broadcasting to the local population. Come and steal from me. Mug me, please. Steal everything that I have on my person. And leave me in the ditch. Like, that's what it's broadcasting. Going as a fucking tourist. You're just giving the game up. You know, if I'm going to go somewhere, folks, I don't want going as a tourist. I want to go there for business. For a good reason. So look, that's the first thing I'm thinking. This fucking whole idea of being a tourist. Can't understand it. But then it gets better. Not only do people go to places like Peru as a tourist, but then they get into this hunk of shit piece of metal that we call a Peruvian plane. You know, they get into these planes. It's like something folks, look at the thumbnail for this show. That plane is like something you'd see in Jurassic Park that's about to crash into the jungle. Does anybody watch these movies? Hollywood is trying to tell you folks that you see planes that look like these planes in Peru and South America. You know, these wee small ones that carry 10 to 15 people. Have you not seen enough, folks, to tell you that these kinds of planes have disaster written all over them, and fuck knows who is piloting these planes? As I said earlier, your Peruvian pilot could be fresh from a fucking magic mushroom session. He could have been just fresh from a good sniff of ayahuasca or whatever the fuck you call it. I keep hearing people talk about this. It keeps coming up on my X feed. Ayahuasca or something. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's like I don't even know. It's like some drug, is it? Some natural herbal thing. Yeah, well, your pilot could be sniffing or inhaling or fucking drinking some of that crap before he or she takes you up into the air. So bad enough that we have tourists going to these places. But then the tourists decide to get into these seedy, shady, sketchy-looking planes with Manuel. You know Manuel? Manuel's going to take you over some sand that has some lines drawn in it. And you're going to take some pictures from Manuel's airplane with your own camera. And then, woo, Manuel loses control because he has a fucking seizure thanks to his magic mushrooms that he had last night. You know, folks, it is bizarre. But we're going to try and understand what we are looking at here. Because, you know, I have a theory as to why people do these bizarre looking things to me. Number one, people going as a tourist. This malarkey of going as a tourist, that's just the first thing. Why do people want to go to places as a tourist in the modern age? I've got an explanation for that. And then secondly, why do these tourists get into dodgy planes that look like scrap pieces of metal with Manuel the pilot, fresh from his magic mushroom session? Why do people do this? All so that they can go up above a wee bit of a desert, you know, a wee bit of sand that has some lines drawn in it. Ancient fucking drawings is what it's called. Why do people do this, folks? Because, you know, when I first see stories like this, I cannot believe what I'm seeing and reading. But there is an explanation. We're going to get into it, folks. It should be a good show. But, you know, before we do that, let's have a look at the article first. It's a really short article. It's not long at all. I just want you to fully understand from our mates, the BBC, what it is that we're dealing with here. So I'm going to bring the article up. We're going to understand what happened out here in Peru. Then we're going to extract a lesson from all of this. There's a very important lesson. As I said in the introduction, it's one of these stories that people will see. They'll see the story and they'll just say, another plane crash out in Peru. Peruvian plane went down. 13 tourists killed. Oh well. Glad it wasn't me. And then people go on to the next story because they have fucking fudge brains. We're not going to do that today. So we're going to have a look at this article. We're going to extract the lesson afterwards. Okay, let's have a look and see. Let's get this article up. Where's my article? It's not up there on the screen. Let me see. What on earth is going on here, folks? What is going on? Let's see if we can get this article up. Is it going to come up here? There it is. I thought the BBC was going to do me in there. But the BBC are our mates. The BBC wouldn't do this to the Bandido. Of course it wouldn't. Now, let's read this thing. As I've said, it's a short article. What's the headline? Tourist plane crashes in Peru, killing 13. Now, folks, I don't want to be distasteful here. Obviously, it's a tragedy. That goes without saying. But we're going to learn something from this tragedy. And for us to learn something, the Bandido needs to be blunt in his analysis here. He has to be blunt. Please don't take it as distasteful. It's just me being blunt to get the message across. Okay, so a tourist plane, the tourists, of course. You don't hear the locals. Yeah, you see, the locals know better, don't they? The locals out in Peru know better than to get into a plane with Manuel. Okay, so you can see, here's the image. Fire officers attended the scene of the crash over the Nazca lines archaeological site. Okay. So let's read a bit of this, folks. Let's zoom in here. Get this up on the screen. So this was from, I think it was from late last week, possibly. So, we'll read down through this. We'll extract the lesson. Let's go. A small plane carrying tourists has crashed in Peru, killing all 13 on board, according to local news reports and Peruvian officials. The aircraft, a Cessna Caravan C208. Folks, I don't mean to laugh, but I mean a Cessna Caravan C208. Does that sound like something that you should be getting into in Peru? A Cessna Caravan. Fuck me. The day, folks, that someone comes to me and says, Mr. Bandido, would you like to come for a ride in the sky here on my Cessna Caravan C208? Yeah. Okay, so the aircraft had been flying over Nazca Lines archaeological site when it went down on Saturday. 11 passengers and 2 pilots were on board. The passengers included 2 German, 2 Spanish, and 7 Italian tourists, Peru's state news agency reported. The cause of the crash is not yet clear. Well, I think we could let our minds wander and speculate as to how, is this probably a well-regulated, well-inspected aircraft out in Peru, out in the bush there? The Nazca Lines is a popular tourist attraction. Dear Lord, you won't find me, folks, near the Nazca Lines. The only reason you're going to find me, let's have a look at this. Like, here they are down here. The Nazca Lines is a popular tourist attraction and a UNESCO World Heritage Site in southern Peru that features ancient drawings of animals in the desert sand. Tourists often fly in small planes to see the extent of the drawings. Folks, I have to laugh. I mean, how else could you not laugh? Drawings of fucking animals in the desert sand. Like, people, the tourists, leave it to the tourists. They, of course, need to fly in a nice little small plane. Nothing could go wrong with her, could it? To see the extent of the drawings. Take a look at this, folks. It's amazing, isn't it? What some personalities in this world get drawn towards. Excuse the pun. So we've got a load of squiggles in the sand here. Could we not just analyze these pictures that already exist on the internet? Why do we have to fly over the desert in a dodgy plane? Oh yes, there is a reason for this, folks. Stay with us, because I'm going to try and put together my own reasoning. But there you have it. It's a magnificent sight, isn't it, folks? Yeah, magnificent, all right. Squiggly lines in the sand, all right. Now, the article continues. This is the end of the article, folks. Quote, given the severity of the accident, there are no survivors. We have recovered 4 bodies so far, Police Major Jorge Andrade said, according to AFP. The crash happened around 1 p.m. local time in the Pueblo Viejo region after the plane departed from an airport in Pisco, Peru. Video from Reuters news agency shows firefighters spraying water at the scene as smoke rises from the wreckage. In a statement in Spanish posted online by the Municipalidad Provincial de Nazca, officials expressed, quote, deep sorrow for the accident and extended, quote, heartfelt condolences to the families of the deceased. The same crap. Do you ever notice that, folks, just on a side note? Same empty garbage talk. Every time there's an accident, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the families of the deceased. Oh, that stuff pisses me off. Anyway, the statement said the plane belonged to local Peruvian airline, Diana. Folks, all I can do is shake my head. The local Peruvian airline, Diana. The Cessna Caravan fucking 208 from Diana. In a statement, the airline said it would, quote, assess its flight schedule in accordance with the directives of the relevant authorities, according to Reuters. The BBC has contacted the airline for comment. This isn't the first plane to crash over the famed site in the past few decades. Let me highlight that wonderful little sentence there, folks. This isn't the first plane to crash over the famed site in the past few decades. In 2022, another small tourist plane crashed during a flight over the Nazca Line site, killing 7 on board, And in 2010, a tourist plane went down over the site, killing 6 people on board. You know, does anybody notice a pattern, folks? When small planes fly over the Nazca lines, there seems to be the possibility of fatalities from a crash. So it's not as if the tourists involved here are unaware. It's not as if this particular route has a squeaky clean record when it comes to the preservation of life and the tourists on board. So, you know, please bear that in mind, folks. We have recent evidence from the past number of years that there are plane crashes over this site. But on go the Germans and the Spanish and the Italians anyway. All right. So, that is the story, folks. Let's go back up here. So again, that's the whole story. If you want to find the article, you can go onto the BBC News website and read it for yourself. Okay. Now, let's get the main screen back up here and extract the lesson from this. Because, folks, we have to ask ourselves, why would people do this? When there's a known risk, you know, we're talking about third world planes with third world, you know, inspection quality control, with third world pilots. You know, I don't want to be derogatory here, but if I'm going to get into the air, I'm going to use a Western airline. Now, I know people say, Boeing and, you know, all these, you know, you see the planes crashed here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, when we're talking about Western airlines, EasyJet, Ryanair, Jet2, Aer Lingus, these records, these commercial airliners have very good safety records. It's very unusual to get a catastrophe, to have a catastrophic crash with a whole bunch of fatalities. So look, I have no major reservations getting on to a major commercial airline that has a track record of being safe and getting me from A to B. No problem. Is that what we're dealing with here? No. We're dealing with the local Peruvian airline, Diana Cessna Caravan 208, whatever the fuck it's called. What's the quality control like? Who does the inspections on this? How long has this been flying for? Who's the pilot? You know, we have evidence from the last number of years that when tourists fly over the Nazca lines, there can be crashes, there can be fatalities. There's a pattern. Use your pattern recognition, tourists. Crashes happen over the Nazca lines. But the tourists go on anyway, even though they know the risk involved. All to do what? Is there some extraordinary benefit to be gained from doing this? What's the extraordinary benefit? Oh, that's right. You get to stir out of this fucking piece of shit plane, this garbage piece of tin and metal. You get to stir out of the shady looking window of this thing, and you get to take in the, quote, extent of the squiggly lines and straight lines that have been made in the sand. That's the trade-off. That's the benefit. So, you know, if someone came to me and said, Mr. Bandido, I've got a great idea. Do you want to go to Peru as a tourist? Automatically, no. Not going to Peru as a tourist. I've already shut the proposal down. But Mr. Bandido, do you want to go to Peru as a tourist? No, I do not want to go to Peru as a tourist. Oh right. Oh, well, do you want to go to Peru and go to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the archaeological site, the Nazca Lines? Do you want to go to that? Not as a tourist, Mr. Bandido. Right. And, okay, so I'm not going as a tourist. You want me to go to the Nazca Lines, this archaeological site. Okay, why? You want me to go why? What am I getting out of this? How am I going to be, am I traveling by car, plane? What am I doing? Oh, well, we're going by plane. Who's flying us? Oh, the local Peruvian airline. Cessna fucking Caravan 208. Euro Diana. What is in this for me? Because there must be something extraordinary waiting on the other end of this activity. So what am I getting out of this? Is there a couple of billion of dollars? You know, is there a pot of, 15,000 pots of gold on the other end of this? $2 billion? You know, what am I getting? Am I going to get access to the elixir of life that's going to allow me to live forever? What is the benefit to me of getting in the Cessna Caravan 208 from Euro Diana, a local Peruvian airline, to go over the Nazca lines, this archaeological site? Okay, well, what am I getting? Oh, well, you're gonna have the opportunity to take in the extent of the squiggly lines and the straight lines that have been made in the sand many thousands of years ago. No, I am not doing that. Why would I do that? That's my benefit. My benefit is to what? Get into this tin piece of shit, stir out its shitty fucking mouldy windows, and what? Take in the sight before me? No, I'm not doing that. Fuck me. So, automatically, folks, if this were me, number one, I'm not going to Peru as a tourist. I'm not going anywhere as a tourist. Tourism doesn't interest me. Opportunity interests me, and I need a concrete reason to go somewhere. There has to be a concrete or very likely opportunity that I'm going to be able to exploit. I'm not just going to go furry, go as a tourist and see what happens. No. I'm going there for a reason. So, no, I'm not going to Peru as a tourist. Oh, what about the Nazca Lines, the archaeological site? Well, how do I get there? Oh, you have to go in a dodgy plane. Right, well, what's the benefit of me getting into this dodgy plane to fly over the Nazca Lines? Oh, well, you get to take in the extent of the squiggly and straight lines that have been made in the sand thousands of years ago. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? But, even though I wouldn't do it, because it feels a logic analysis from my perspective, because I would know, because I would do my due diligence, that this particular flight route has had a few crashes before, and there have been a few tourists that have met their end in life by having a wee dander over the Nazca Lines. So I would need a damn good reason, and no, that's not a good enough reason for me to just take in the extent of the Nazca Lines. So why do people do this? That's the question that we're trying to understand here. Why would someone go, number one, as a tourist to Peru? Why do people go to places as tourists? That's number one. And then number two, when you are a tourist in some far-flung land, why do tourists engage in risky behaviour? Why do tourists get into dodgy planes for very little upside? Why would you do this? Well, here comes the Bandido's theory. And I believe it has mostly to do. I'm not saying it's entirely to do with what I'm going to say, but I would argue most tourists do what they do. Because remember, we're talking about tourists. These weren't fucking 11 scientists. No, that's not how the article has presented it. We're going to take the article at face value. Tourists. They're not out doing scientific research. They're not out, they're not businessmen out trying to take advantage of a business opportunity. No, they are fucking tourists. Okay, why do tourists do anything? That's fundamentally the question that we're trying to answer here. Why do tourists do anything? And then when we go a wee bit deeper, why do tourists do these risky things with very little upside? Here's the reason why I think tourists do the things that you see them doing. I think most of tourist behaviour in the modern age can be explained by social media. What do I mean by that? Well, do you think these tourists who go to Peru, who go to Mexico, who go to fucking Asia and Hawaii, fuck knows where else, all of these tourists that go to parts of the world to be a tourist, do you think they would be as motivated to go if they didn't have a phone that was able to take pictures and videos of their excursions? You know, folks, if the mobile phone didn't exist, if the internet did not exist, if the idea of social media didn't exist, do you think you would see as many people engaging in tourist behaviours and risky tourist behaviours? I would argue you wouldn't. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. But some of these tourists might have big online followings. And so the reason why they're out in Peru in this dodgy plane is because they're looking to get content for their social media. And they need to feed their big followings. And part of this content involves getting into planes and going over the Nazca lines. So they're actually out there on business. You might say that. Okay. Well, let's analyse this. There's no problem, folks, with using the internet. No problem at all. The internet is a great invention. It is a great tool to make your living. Absolutely. When we are engaging with life, folks, we must approach life through a very basic lens. It's not the be-all, end-all. I'm not saying that you can't, expand this lens. But it's a good starting point. And the lens that you want to use is what we're going to call a cost-benefit lens. So whenever you go to do something in life, folks, you need to weigh up two primary things. You need to weigh up the potential cost of the activity, i.e., you need to weigh up the potential risk of the activity, and you need to weigh up the potential benefit of the activity. This is basic life strategies 101. You need to look at the activity in hand and you need to say, what's the potential risk? What's the potential benefit? We call this a cost-benefit, a risk-reward analysis. Okay, so there are many ways, folks, that you can make your living online, whereby the cost benefit is greatly skewed in favour of benefit and minimal risk/cost. There are lots of things that you and I can do online that are minimal risk but very high potential benefit. And that's what you want in life, folks. Anytime you do something in life, you want to try and have the benefit greatly outweigh the risk of whatever it is you're doing. You want there to be a good, wide, healthy chasm between the risk and the benefit. Because that now means that when you engage with said activity, it's more likely, whenever we look at this through a probability lens, it's more likely that you're going to get benefit out of the activity than cost. It's more likely that the activity is going to reward you than it is going to cost you something. So, let's get back to our tourists. Let's just speak broadly about tourists. Why do tourists do what they do? I would argue that an enormous motivation behind all modern day tourism that you see is that people want to go to places so they can get their little phone out and snap pictures and videos so that they can upload them to Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, you name it. Fucking, what do you call the other one? What's that other one called? Not Twitch. Not Twitter. TikTok. So pick your social media platform of choice. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. People are going as a tourist because you know what they're looking to do? You know what the vast majority of tourists are looking to do? They are looking to grandstand to their audiences. They want to show their audience, look at me, look at the marvelous life I'm living. I travel here, I travel there. I take pictures and videos and I document every fucking plot of land that I set foot on. And they're uploading all this content to their social media. And they are basically grandstanding their lifestyle. That's what they're doing. Now, sometimes they're going to put in travel tips and travel hacks, and they're going to give you some maybe useful feedback about that country, about that plot of land. They may say, well, if you travel here, I can give you my experience. Okay, all well and good. But at the end of the day, folks, what are we watching here? We are watching a bunch of people grandstanding. Status. They want to travel around. They are using all of their fucking content from all these different locations to increase their status online. That's what they're doing. They are grandstanding. They are showing you that they, number one, have the resources, and they, number two, have the know-how to navigate all these different areas on Earth. And that gives them credibility. That enhances their reputation. It increases their status. And how do we analyze? How do we measure someone's status online? Well, how many followers do they have? How many likes do they have? How many times does their content get shared? Reposting. All these sorts of things. Views. These are all measures of status online. And a lot of these people who go as tourists, they're trying to grandstand to their audiences because they want to show their audience what they're doing, their magnificent lifestyle. And then they're trying to hook the audience in by saying, well, look, I've went here and I now have this knowledge. I can give you this knowledge and you can benefit from my content. There's the hook. And so more people watch, more people share, more people follow, more people like. Okay. But make no mistake, folks, they're grandstanding. They're grandstanding their lifestyle. I know they're going to say, the reason why I do it is for you guys. I do it for you guys because, I want you to benefit from my knowledge. Yeah. No, you're grandstanding. It's for status. And I have no problem with that. Everybody's grandstanding. I'm grandstanding right now. Of course I am. That's why I'm online. Part of the motivation for doing this, Bandido Talks, is because I'm grandstanding. There's a certain amount of that. There's a performative grandstanding element to what I'm doing. It's not the only reason that I'm doing it, but it is in there, in the mix. So, we have all these tourists. Why do people go to places as a tourist? Because they want to document what it is they are doing. And through the process of documentation, they upload it to social media. And when they upload this stuff to social media, they get followers, they get likes, they get shares, they get views. And whenever you get lots of these things, you increase your status. And what happens when you become a high status person, because all of these measures are increasing continuously, well, your reputation or credibility within the online space also goes up. And as you become a more credible source of information, more people come to your channel, to your social media platform, and it's a virtuous cycle. Okay. So, tourists, folks, I would argue, do what they do because they're looking to grandstand. They want to, increase their status online. Because, folks, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen too many people who go to another part of the world as a tourist and who doesn't take videos and pictures and post them online and share them among friends. Have you met too many people who do that? How many people have you met who just leave their phones in their home country? How many people do you know just leave their phones, leave their devices, and just travel somewhere with no phone, laptop, no nothing? How many people do you know like that? Or does everybody you know who travels abroad as a tourist, do they have all their little handy cams with them? Do they have their phones with them? Are they talking into their Instagram stories? You know, what is the typical tourist more like? Is it like person A or person B? It's person B. I haven't met someone, ever. I've never met someone who has travelled abroad as a tourist who has left their phone behind and who doesn't document, take pictures and take videos and upload or share those videos and pictures with other people. I've never met someone who doesn't do that. So we need to understand the root motivation of what's going on here. The root motivation is status. People want status. They are traveling abroad so that they can be seen in different locations of Earth. They want to be seen in different locations because that gives them a degree of credibility. They must have the resources to travel. So they're obviously financing this in some way. They must have the resources to do this, and they also must have the skill and know-how to pull it off. So this must be a credible person. Boom, boom, boom. People start to subscribe. Then, you know, all they have to do is say, here's my 5 tips for going to Bali, or for going to Chile, or for going to Peru. My 5 tips are do these things when you go to Peru. Go here to these locations. You can suddenly see how someone can start to build their online credibility. But it's all built on a desire to pursue status. Make no mistake about that. And these people are grandstanding. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we need to understand what we're looking at. Why is this so important, folks? Because humans are status-seeking machines. Humans are status-seeking machines. Status to a human is arguably just as important in many ways as food and calories. Why is status so important? We talked about this before, folks, many times on the show. When you're in an ancestral tribe of 40 or 50 people, I give the very brief breakdown here. When you're in an ancestral tribe of 40 or 50 people, you need to be seen as valuable. If you are not being viewed as a valuable asset to the tribe, you then run the risk of being turfed out of the tribe. Now, as we all know, folks, humans are group animals. We are social creatures. An isolated human is an incredibly vulnerable human. An isolated human in our ancestral past is not going to make it. They're going to be picked off by a predator. They're going to starve to death. They're going to become disease-ridden. They're going to be caught out in the elements somehow. They're going to be exposed, basically. They don't have the insurance of the group. They don't have the protection of the group. So an isolated human in our ancestral past is basically a dead man or a dead woman walking. Now, why is this important? Well, what did I just say? If you're in a tribe, 30, 40, 50 people, you need to be pulling your weight in the tribe. You need to be seen as a valuable asset or addition to the tribe. If you're not seen as valuable, you run the risk of being kicked out because you're dead weight. And in our ancestral past, you can't afford to be carrying dead weight in the tribe. You can't afford that. The margins are very slim when you're living out in the wild. And you can't afford to be carrying dead weight with you. So how is it that you demonstrate your value to the tribe? So that the tribe respects and admires you as a completely earned member of the group? Well, you need to find ways to increase and maintain your status. Status is the way that people assess other people's value. If you're a high status individual, you are automatically viewed as valuable. Certainly in your ancestral past. How is it that you increase your status? Well, you need to do useful things. You need to be a useful human. You need to be able to effectively hunt as part of the group. You need to be able to effectively, forage for nuts, berries, tubers, underground storage organs. You need to be able to effectively ward off predators. You need to be able to effectively find different sites and locations within the wilderness where you can set up your basic village. You need to be able to care for the offspring. You need to be able to protect the offspring. You need to be able to perhaps, understand how to use natural substances around you, natural herbs, so that if someone gets sick, they can get cured in some way. You need to demonstrate your value through your usefulness and your competency. What happens whenever you are more useful to the group? What happens whenever you're demonstrating that you're more competent, that you have a degree of competency to offer to the group? Your status goes up. And what happens when your status goes up? People perceive you as more valuable. And what happens when people perceive you as being more valuable? They are going to want you to be included in the group. They are definitely not going to want to lose you from the group, because your loss from the group could be detrimental to the group's overall functioning. So if you're a high status, highly valued member of an ancestral tribe, you're going to have the insurance and protection of the tribe. The tribe won't want to leave you behind. The tribe won't want to fucking throw you onto the bus, because that would be like shooting the tribe's own bollocks off. You bring so much use and value to the tribe that they want you to be part of it. In other words, your high status. If you're viewed as high status, you're going to be included in the group. If you're included in the group and you're not an isolated human, well, now the probability that your genes are going to survive into the next generation have went up some significant percentage. Okay, so we have very, very deep ancestral reasons, deep biological reasons for pursuing status, folks. Status is make or break. Your ability to increase your status in the tribe could be a deal breaker for you. If you aren't demonstrating value and you aren't increasing your status, and better still, if you're losing status among your peers, what happens when you lose status among your peers? You lose their respect. You lose their admiration. They start to view you as more cost than benefit. What did I say earlier, folks? Cost-benefit analyses. Risk-reward analyses. Your comrades, your colleagues in an ancestral tribe will be analysing your performance and your usefulness and your value and the degree of status that you hold within the tribe. And you see, if you aren't pulling your weight, you're going to end up being more cost than benefit to the group. And what happens whenever the ratio gets skewed towards more cost than benefit? You get kicked out of the tribe. And if you get kicked out of the tribe, you're now an isolated human. And if you're an isolated human, you're dead. Goodbye to your genes. They ain't making it into the next generation. So folks, humans' pursuit of status is, I would argue, almost as strong as a human's pursuit for calories. Both of these things, calories and status, are exceptionally important to humans. You need enough calories to survive, and you need enough status so that you don't get kicked out of the group. Because if you get kicked out of the group, your probability of death has went up exponentially. You're very likely not to make it. So as a result, hardwired into your psychology is this thirst for status. Now, let's integrate this with our tourists to make sense of all of this. I've already talked about the basic lens that we can use to analyze any activity that we're going to engage in this world. The cost-benefit analysis. the cost-benefit lens, the risk-reward lens. Let me explain the lesson from this story, folks. Your psychology is wired to pursue status, but you need to be careful. And let me tell you why you need to be careful. Because you want to be pursuing status in the right way from the people who truly matter. Let me repeat that. When you pursue status, and we all do it, folks, I'm pursuing status right now on this live stream. When you are engaged in the pursuit of status, you want to make sure that you are pursuing status in the right way from the people that truly matter. Folks, followers online are normally nameless, faceless entities. They mightn't even be real. You see all the followers you're getting? You see all the likes you're getting? See all the shares you're getting? Be under no illusions, folks. The internet and social media is not the real world. It's not the real world. The status that you get from social media is not true status. It is pseudo-status. Because you do not know who these people are most of the time. They aren't interacting with you in an ancestrally consistent way. When someone hits the love heart on your video, that is pseudo-status. You didn't get to see the person. You didn't get to talk to the person. You didn't feel the flow of status and esteem coming from that person. All you've seen is a little button on a screen light up red. It's the same with your followers. When you see the number of followers going up, it's just a number on the screen. That's it. When you see the views going up on your videos, they are just numbers on a screen. They are pseudo status. Folks, if you are pursuing status online, be very careful because it is not true, authentic status. It's not true, authentic esteem that you're getting. It's a pseudo-esteem. It's a pseudo-status. Remember what I just said. You want to earn your status. You want to earn your value in this life in the right way from the people that matter. Now, I'm not saying you can't have an online social media presence. I'm not saying you can't monetize all of these followers, all of these views, all of this attention. Of course you can. Perfectly legitimate. No problem at all. But don't get sucked into the trap. And you know what the trap is? You lose what is truly important in this life. And you know what's truly important in this life? What is happening in the real world? That is what is truly important in this life. The real world interactions that you are having with people who you care about and who care about you. Those are the golden interactions in this life. Those are the interactions whereby you're going to earn your status and your esteem in the right way from people who truly matter. And while it's very seductive, while it's very attractive, the whole idea of social media platforms and likes and followers and fucking shares and views, while all of that is very attractive, and while all of that can absolutely be monetized to enhance your life, be very careful. You're playing with fire. Fire can be very useful, folks. It can help you cook food. It can keep you warm. It can ward off predators. Fire can be exceptionally useful, but it can also burn you. It can kill you. It can fucking burn a forest down. Treat social media and pseudo-status like fire. Be very careful. It's not that you can't use it. You can use it. You can use it very effectively. But don't get lost in it to the point where you end up getting severely burned or killed. Remember, the most important status that you're going to acquire in this life is going to be from those interactions in the real world from real people that you are staring at. You're in their presence, you're feeling their energy, you're getting their feedback firsthand. You don't get this on social media. Likes don't do that. Subscribers don't do that. Views don't do that. Shares don't do that. They're just little bright buttons and numbers on a screen. Pseudo status. Why is this very important and very related to our story? Let me explain. These tourists who got onto this piece of shit Peruvian plane, I would make the argument that these tourists have fallen into the exact trap that I've just explained. They have ran a completely skewed cost-benefit analysis. They have ran a completely skewed risk-reward analysis. I would argue that the tourists who were killed out in Peru in this plane crash, I would argue that the reason why they even got on that plane in the first place was so they could get up into the air, get their phones out, get their video cameras out, take a picture, take a few videos so that they could upload it to social media and fucking grandstand and say, look where I was this summer. I was out in Peru. I flew over southern Peru, the Nazca lines, and I took pictures of these straight and squiggly lines in the sand. How great am I? How sophisticated am I? How brilliant am I? Boom. Plane crashes and they are dead. This is the thing, folks. This is why you won't get me on the Diana Peruvian local airline plane. Because I ain't gonna fall for that trap. Be very, very careful, folks, in your pursuit of status. Remember, your ancestors didn't have the internet. They didn't have social media. They did not have access to the technology that we now have access to through phones, laptops, video recorders, and all the rest. Your ancestors were earning their status in the right way from people that truly mattered. Their 30 or 40 comrades in the tribe. Who matters more than those 30 or 40 people? Those 30 or 40 people, if you were an ancestral human, those 30 or 40 people are your protection and insurance against the harsh realities of nature. Those people are the absolutely most important people in your life as an ancestral human. So you are going to want to be pursuing the status that comes from being useful and valuable to those people. In other words, you're going to be earning your status, earning your value, earning your esteem in the right way, doing real things in the real world that are truly useful to other people. And you're going to be doing these things for people who you actually admire, people who actually mean something to you. That was your ancestral humans. Those were your ancestors. In the modern age, folks, we have this thing called social media. And you need to be careful with social media because social media can tug on your desire to pursue status. What did I say earlier? Your psychology is hardwired to pursue status with the same ferocity that your fucking hunger drive has you pursue calories. Status is so important to you as a human. It's very important that you are being included in groups of people. If you're being excluded from groups, being thrown out of groups, that sends your psychology haywire. That's a big, big siren going off in your mind. Because there are good, deep evolutionary reasons why you losing status and getting kicked out of a group could be very detrimental to your life. But you need to be careful because the status that you will earn in the real world, being truly valuable to real people who are actually meaning something to you, that is a very different kind of status to the pseudo status that you will gain online through likes, views, subscriptions, and shares. My argument in this live show is most tourists in the modern age do what they do because they are in a social media pseudo-status trap. They are pursuing the status of nameless, faceless entities on the internet that mightn't even be humans. They might be fucking AI bots. There are people who are in this pseudo-status trap, pursuing esteem and trying to acquire the admiration of these faceless, nameless entities online. That is a trap, folks. And you need to make sure that you don't end up doing something unnecessarily risky in order to try and get more followers, more views, more likes, more shares. You don't want to do something unnecessarily risky like get into the Cessna Caravan 208 Euro Diana local Peruvian airline that flies over the Nazca lines, these straight lines and squiggles in the sand, that has a proven track record for killing tourists along this route. This is the thing, folks. I would argue that you see all these tourists who have tragically died, perished in this Peruvian plane crash. I would argue that their principal motivation for even getting into that plane was the pseudo-status that was going to come their direction by posting their little pictures and videos to their social media. That's what I would argue. Because again, I go back to what I said earlier, folks. How many tourists do you know travel to other locations without their phone? Without a video camera? How many tourists do you know just go to Peru without any phone? Or with a very simple phone that can't take pictures? A non-smartphone. How many tourists do you know like that? I don't know any. At all. I've never encountered a tourist like that. And so my argument here is, be very careful, folks. When you are going to engage in an activity in this life, what we should be doing is we should be looking at that activity through a cost-benefit analysis, through a risk-reward analysis. And we should be analysing our motivation for engaging in this behaviour. If I'm going to Peru as a tourist to fly over the Nazca lines to take fucking pictures of these squiggles in the sand, that now, folks, you can see the problem here. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this what? So I can take a few pictures? And then what am I going to do with the pictures? What am I going to do with the videos? Oh, look where I was. I was flying over southern Peru. Look how great I am. Grandstand. Yes, I want the status that comes from a big online following. Yeah, your plane's crashed and you're dead. Not much use to you now, is it? All could have been avoided. All could have been avoided. And so you want to be analysing your motivation for doing things. Folks, there's no problem with taking a picture or taking a video and uploading it to social media. I'm doing it right now. No problem. But folks, notice what I'm doing. What's the risk? What's the cost to me doing a live show inside my house? What's the risk to me? It's basically zero. The only thing that I'm going to get out of this is potential benefit. There's basically the only cost is my time. That's it. And if I enjoy doing it and I get some, extra benefits out of doing Bandido talks, then that isn't even a cost because I'm enjoying doing it. So what is the cost to me fucking doing this live show? It's basically zero. But there's a whole potential bit of upside to me doing it. There's a whole potential, source of benefit for me to exploit. Bit of a difference compared to getting into some, piece of shit plane flying over the Nazca lines in Peru. An aviation route that literally has a proven track record for fatal crashes with tourists in the planes. This is my point, folks. Use social media, absolutely. But you see, whenever you're going to do something for social media, do a cost-benefit analysis. have a look at the activity that you're going to do. And you see if you start to notice, actually, there's a bit of risk here to what I'm doing. You know, why am I doing this? I'm doing this what? For likes, subscribers, views, shares? Is it really worth it? Is this potential risk, which is definitely present, really worth it? Folks, the lesson here is put the brakes on. You see, whenever it comes to social media, you need to be very aware that you are always teetering right on the edge of a pseudo-status trap. You're always teetering on the edge of this trap. You're teetering on the edge of falling into this trap. Every time I go on to Bandido Talks, every time I do a piece of content, I'm always thinking, okay, let me just analyze this. Am I doing something that's carrying elevated risk? Let me analyze it. Okay, I'm talking in front of a camera. I'm out in nature. Is there a big risk to me here? No, there isn't. Okay, I'm going to do the piece of content. I'm going to upload it online. Perfect. Okay. Because the risk is very low. And the potential upside is definitely there. But if you're going to do something, folks, engage in some activity like tourism or getting into dodgy planes to, take pictures of some archaeological site from the air, you should be running a very cold, calculated analysis of the cost, the benefit, and your intrinsic motivation for doing this. Because if you're doing this just so that you can grandstand online, so that you can get more likes and followers, etc., so that you can acquire pseudo-status, which pales in comparison to the real status that you get in the real world from people who actually mean something to you. Folks, we all know this. Let's imagine, I want you on the other end of this stream. I want you to think of this. I want you to think of someone in your life who you really admire and respect. Someone you know. I don't mean a celebrity, not that. I want you to think of someone in your life, a family member, a friend, a fucking spouse, whatever. I want you to think of someone who you really respect and admire, and whose feedback you really respect and admire. Think of that person. I have people like that in my life. Pretty much everyone has at least a couple of these people in their lives. Now think of it, folks. If you've got someone in your life who you really respect and admire, is there anything comparable to when that person praises you, esteems you, values you, finds you useful, and tells you it? Is there anything like that? We all know the feeling, folks. Whenever we get praised, whenever someone admires something that we've done, who we really care about, or who we really admire, it's such a magnificent feeling when you're in the real world and you actually do something truly valuable and useful for someone, and that person you can literally feel your status rising as that person esteems you and praises you for what it is that you've done. It's a magnificent feeling. Compare that to social media. Okay, you got a like on your video. You got a few subscribers. It pales in comparison. Let me give you the perfect analogy. Social media status is like junk food, while real world status that has been acquired from people who you admire, respect, and truly care about, that is like pristine, organic, whole food that makes you feel fucking great. Folks, how do you feel when you eat a load of junk food? Does junk food give you calories? Yeah. Will it keep you alive? Yeah. How good does it make you feel, though? Think of it. Whenever you sit down and stuff your face like a pig and you overindulge, how good do you feel afterwards? You sort of feel like, I feel like I could lie down. Do you feel energetic? Do you feel like you could do stuff? No. You feel like a slob. You feel like a mess. You feel psychologically cloudy. Junk food doesn't make you feel good. It gives you a very short-lived experience of pleasure. There's a very short-lived, pleasurable feeling that comes from eating high-calorie junk food. That wears off very quickly. And we all know, folks, that when you eat a whole pile of junk food, you don't feel great. If you do this day after day, you start putting on weight, you start to feel sluggish, you feel low on energy, you don't want to move. It doesn't feel good. You get spikes in your blood sugar, you get crashes in your blood sugar, that affects your mood, you start to become moodier, more unstable psychologically. You're all over the fucking place. Now compare that to when you're actually eating cleanly. You're eating good, whole, pristine, well-prepared, wholesome food. What's the difference? There's no comparison. You're of course going to feel substantially better when you're eating the whole, pristine, non-junk food that comes from the produce section, basically, of your local shop. That's of course going to make you feel better. We all know that. It's exactly the same with your status, folks. You should be pursuing status in the real world, doing truly valuable, useful things for people who you respect, and those people respect you also. So you should be, in other words, you should be earning your status in the right way from the people that truly matter in your life. That's like the whole food, organic, pristine chow that we all know makes us feel better and makes us look better. You see social media? It's like junk food. It's pseudo status. It's not true status. It's pseudo status. It'll give you a little dopamine kick. It'll give you a wee pleasurable kick initially. We've all felt it, folks. See when you see the wee love heart getting hit by your viewers. You see whenever you see your subscriber count going up. When you see that your video's got a lot of views. You get a wee pang of dopamine. You get a wee pleasurable hit. That's the pseudo status. That's like the junk food. Be under no illusions though. It pales in comparison to the real McCoy. To the real thing. And again, does that mean you can't have, a wee donut here and there? Does that mean you can't, let your hair down every now and again and have a pizza or, go out and have a Chinese or have a nice, slightly indulgent meal at the restaurant with your friends and family? Of course you can do that. Nobody's saying you can't do that. But we all understand, folks, if you do that every day, day after day, you're now out of balance. You're eating too much trash, shitty food. And you're now neglecting the pristine, wholesome food that makes you look and feel better. It's the same with your status. Don't be like these, I don't want to call them dipshits, because that seems like I'm being tactless. But you don't want to be like these tourists who are probably seeking a whole bunch of pseudo status by getting on a fucking heap of crap plane to fly over southern Peru so that they can take pictures outside or from within the plane of these lines in the desert sand. All so they can do what? Why are they taking the pictures? Remember, folks, go back to the root of tourist behaviour in the modern age. They're taking these pictures and videos so they can upload them online. Why does somebody upload content online? They're uploading content online because they want followers, they want likes, they want views, they want shares, they want status. They want to increase their status in the online sphere. They want to be seen grandstanding. They want to be seen as a valuable person. They want to be seen as a knowledgeable person. They want to be seen as a person with a great reputation, a person with a very credible reputation. And you do not want to fall into the trap of pursuing pseudo status to your detriment, whereby you end up engaging in activities that have unnecessarily high degrees of risk compared to the benefit, like getting into a shitty plane in Peru and flying over the desert. That's your lesson, folks. Always remember, Status in the real world is different to status in the online world. And always be paying attention. Anytime you're going to do something that's going to end up online, if you're going to take a video or a picture, always remember, run an analysis. Does the benefit outweigh the cost of this activity? And what are my true motivations for doing this? Am I just looking to grandstand to try and get followers online? Because if that is your true motivation, be careful. You're teetering on the edge of a trap. And if you're not careful enough, you can end up getting yourself into very dicey, dodgy predicaments like our tourists out in Peru, who've ended up paying the ultimate price. Learn from their mistake. Learn from it. Yes, it's a tragedy. It's a great loss of life. But let's learn from it, folks. And always remember, you are a status-seeking machine. You cannot change that about your psychology. It's no different to your hunger drive. You can't knock off your hunger drive. You need to eat calories. You need to consume calories to survive. You also need status just as much as you need calories. So you can't do anything about your psychology, folks. You're wired to pursue status. The question that you need to ask yourself is, am I pursuing status in the right way from the people that truly matter in my life? That's the question you need to ask yourself. You then need to run a cost-benefit analysis, a risk-reward analysis, to make sure that you aren't walking into the social media pseudo-status trap whereby you end up engaging in unnecessarily risky behaviours, all for what? All for a few likes and followers online. Faceless, nameless entities that mightn't even be human. Don't lose yourself in the trap, folks. And remember what's really important in this life. Okay, so that is our show, folks. A very important one. It's a story that's not going to set the world alight. Most people have probably forgotten about it. But we can learn something very important from it. So, with that, folks, that draws the show to a close. The Bandido, very animated. Doesn't the Bandido get very animated at times? Do you not think so? But the Bandido loves it. He wouldn't want to have it any other way. But look, folks, I would encourage you, if you do like the content, if you enjoy it, feel free to hit that thumbs up button. Don't worry, the Bandido's not going to get lost in the pseudo-status, pseudo-esteem trap of social media. So you don't have to withhold your feedback. You can give it to the Bandido. He can deal with it. Feel free to hit the thumbs up button, folks. Leave a comment down in the comments section below. Let me know your thoughts and insights down there. Again, I don't think we've anybody in the live chat. No, we don't. So get down into the comments then. If you're watching the live show replay, let me know what you think down there. And then finally, folks, if you enjoy what we generally do on the channel, then feel free to subscribe to Bandido Talks here on YouTube. Folks, you can see how much content we have on the channel. We've got our live shows, over 80 live shows here on YouTube. We've got lessons in nature. We've got YouTube shorts. We've got mind streams. We've got the Bandido out on the tennis court, Bandido swings. We've got the Bandido playing some of his original music. So much stuff, folks, to choose from on the channel. So feel free to subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing. I would also draw your attention to the scrolling black banner below. There it is. You'll see an address for Rumble. We're also active over on Rumble as well. We've got over 40 live shows, almost 50 actually, over on Rumble. Again, remember, the type of live shows that we do on Rumble, they are more political. They're more US-based stories. So if you want more political live shows from the Bandido, if you want more US-based stories, head over to Rumble, use that scrolling black banner below. You'll be able to get all of the necessary details to head over to Rumble. Subscribe over there for some brand new live shows that you haven't seen. Remember, we do live shows on YouTube, live shows on Rumble. They're completely different. So you've got almost 50 live shows waiting for you over on Rumble. If you've only ever been following here on YouTube, head over there. Lots more content in that direction. Again, you can also follow over on X. We can notify you of any upcoming live shows over there, scrolling black banner below. And then finally, folks, I don't want to forget, the scrolling red banner up above. you will see an email address, matteo@inspirit.uk. You know, if you want to get in contact with the Bandido, if you want to drop him a question, run something by the Bandido, give him some feedback, that is how you would do that. You would use the scrolling red banner up above, go to matteo@inspirit.uk as your email address that you're going to be sending stuff to. Send a question, say hi, send some feedback. Again, if you like the Bandido's analytical framework that he uses to break down all of these stories, you may have a situation in your own life that you're looking some feedback on. You may need an independent third party like the Bandido. Shoot him an email, get in contact, and we take it from there. Okay, so Sunday evening, folks, that draws our show to a close. You enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to enjoy mine. I need some food. It's time to eat some rice. What were we saying about wholesome foods? You know, a bit of rice and vegetables. Nice and clean for the Bandido this evening. A little bit of a tahini tomato dressing to go over the top. That's going to have the Bandido being a happy man as he rolls into the evening. I've got some writing to do, folks. The story's going well. The fictional story, I've got some writing to do. The story's not going to write itself. Going to eat some food, write some more words of this book. The life of a wild modern Bandido, folks. He'd want it no other way. You enjoy the rest of your evening, folks. And with all of that said, it is over and out. Here on YouTube, from the Bandido.